We are going to begin the memorial service for Mrs. Betty Sandra Cohen. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode or turn it completely off at this time. I'd also like to welcome on behalf of the family, anybody attending via live stream, thank you as well. Following the memorial service, the family will be receiving calls of condolences at the Cohen residence, 271 Cheryl Lane in Highland Park. So that'll be today following the service today until 8, and then tomorrow from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. That information is on our website and the folders as well. Services will be conducted by Cantor J. O'Brien.
Welcome, everyone. We'll begin our ceremony with a recitation of a poem on the theme of loss and memory. This is by Rabbi Alvin Fine. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. Life itself is the journey. From childhood to maturity, from youth to age, innocence to awareness, ignorance to knowing, foolishness and perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength, from strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and we pray always to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, joy to gratitude, pain to compassion, grief to understanding. From defeat to defeat to defeat, until not looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not in some high point along the way, but in having made the journey step by step, the sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death is a destination. Life is a journey. And so we gather here today to remember the life of a remarkable woman, a caring wife, a devoted mother, loving sister, doting grandma, and a loyal friend. Today we honor the life and the legacy of Betty Sandra Cohen. My name is Jay O'Brien, cantor of this synagogue, Makom Sola Lakeside. It's an honor to be here with Betty's friends and family, to share in the blessings and the memories of her life, and to offer Jewish traditions and words of our tradition that can bring comfort to us in this time of loss and memory. The Jewish funeral service is fairly simple. It consists of a few readings, the recitation of a few psalms, and it concludes with the chanting of a Hebrew memorial prayer known as El Mole Rachamim. We're going to open up our pamphlets and join together in reading one of the most ancient poems of the Hebrew Bible. Psalm 23 speaks of the sense of vulnerability we feel in this moment. And so we ask everyone to join together as we read the English, and then I'll continue by chanting the Hebrew. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai roi lo hechsar Vinodei sheyarbitzeni alemei menuchot yenach aleini nafshi yeshover Yohancheni b'magel lehitzedek Yonecheni b'magel tzedek Leman shemo Gam ki yelech Begetz al mavet lo virora ki ata imadi shivtecha mishantecha hey moyen nachamu Taharoch lefanai Shulchan neget harerai Nishanta vashem roshi Kol sirevai Ach tov v'chesed yirefuni Kol yamei chayai Mishalti meveit Adonai Yamin Adonai Aroi lo echsar Adonai Aroi lo echsar It's now an honor to call up members of the family who will be sharing thoughts and stories about Betty. I believe Brian will be starting us off.
My mother was a very special person, but I guess you all knew that. Family always came first, and she always went out of her way to make new friends. I'd like to share a few things about her, maybe some of you don't know about. One of my most frustrating moments in life was when I was younger. I always wanted a dog. My mother would not let me have a dog. She said we always traveled too much and we were too busy, couldn't get a dog. When I bought my first house, I got a dog. And the first time I had her over, took her 15 minutes to say, you know what, you should have had a dog. Bit my tongue and kept myself quiet for that one. Her favorite time of year was in the summertime, when Joy was at camp and all the men would disappear on canoe trips. She could finally get stuff done. As dementia set in, we could tell that some things were not right with her. She wasn't the same in some respects. I remember one time we were sitting at a stoplight waiting to turn. She was sitting in the car counting musical time to the turn signal. And I thought, even in this state of mind, she's still a piano teacher. A little more than a year ago, my dad told me that they wanted to come for a visit, and it was Labor Day weekend. And my first thought was, not Labor Day weekend, there's too much things to do. But I called them back the next day and I said, you and Mom, come. I want to have you for a visit. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of things. We had a great visit. When it was over, I told my mother how much I loved her, and she told me she loved me. And later I knew that would be the last time she would be at my house, and I cried then. Mom, thank you for all the memories, the life lessons, and all the love. Thank you very much.
All right. It's very hard to watch my mom deteriorate over the years, and I can't believe we're here today, and she is not. To let everyone know who she was, here's some of my most fond memories. My mother was the one who brought the family together, following in her mother's footsteps. The trip she looked forward to the most was our annual trip to Hilton Head, with all the kids of her late sister and their kids. She would make a point in buying matching Hilton Head t-shirts for all the 13 kids and taking a group photo. The practice was repeated for many years as the kids got older. Sports was another theme for her life. She often was the instigator of tennis games, another trait carried down from her mother. She would see to it that I joined tennis lessons and played tournaments. I think she had an ulterior motive, because I would often go to the tennis courts with her on Ladies' Day to find a game, and most of the time I would end up hitting balls with her. Later in life, she took up the game of golf as an activity to play with my dad in their retirement years. Then my son got into the game of golf, and there were many days where we'd have a family game of golf with Dad, Mom, Daniel, and myself. Now that was a great time. She usually hit the ball really nice for a woman in her 80s. And when she could no longer play golf, she would just sit in the golf cart as a passenger, watching while the rest of us played. My mother just wasn't a mother to me. In addition to playing tennis and golf, she was also my kindergarten Sunday school teacher. My mother was also a piano teacher. Our house had a baby grand piano in the living room upstairs and 2 upright pianos in our basement for her to teach on. Even though she taught in the basement during the dinner hour for 4 nights a week from 3 to 8 p.m., she would always make dinner in advance for the family to leave for us to reheat. Sometimes she was able to work it into her schedule to have a short break between students to join the rest of us for dinner. For those that may not know, I took piano lessons for many years, but my mother was not my teacher. However, one year, when my piano teacher took off a year from teaching for maternity leave, I did take lessons from my mom. With my mother as a piano teacher, I always felt like I had an unfair advantage over other competitors in piano competitions or on piano exams, since I had live-in help for piano teaching. My mother also had perfect pitch. You could press any key on the piano and she could tell you exactly what note that was. One of my most vivid memories was when I was practicing piano at home on the baby grand piano in the living room, and my mother was washing her hair in the kitchen sink. Boy, she wouldn't appreciate me telling that to the public now. As I was practicing my piano, with her head under the running faucet of the kitchen, I could strike a wrong note, and I would hear her yelling from the kitchen, "No, try an E sharp." It really was an amazing skill that she had. As a piano player, everyone took great joy in listening to her play some very complicated pieces. But unlike my dad's father, who also was a piano player, my mother didn't mind playing for an audience. This included playing for people in her college dorm for everyone to enjoy the sounds of classical music that she played. Here's a short sample of her playing about exactly 3 years ago. Unlike most families, my mother was the handy person in the family. When I needed a tool, I wouldn't go ask my dad. It was my mom who knew where the tools were and what to do with them and where they were stored. So I owe my creativity and handiness to my mother. My mom's creativity showed up in many other ways. For example, growing up, my mother would buy only non-sugar cereals. So all we had were our fill of Wheaties, Special K, and cornflakes, because that's pretty much all that she would buy. At one point, as a cost-saving measure, she tried to pass off generic white-labeled Cheerios as regular brand name Cheerios. It ended up being a failed experiment because the generic Cheerios tasted like cardboard and they're rejected by everybody. However, she decided to try and pull a fast one on us and mix the generic Cheerios with the real Cheerios and figured nobody would be able to tell the difference. She didn't hear the end of that one for a long time. Getting creative with foods was common for her. In high school, she would cook a package of hot dogs, put them in buns, individually wrap each one in wax paper, and put them in the freezer in a plastic bag. So when we came home from school, we always had a quick, ready-to-eat snack. Genius. My final memory that I'll share was on my 19th birthday. In Canada, the drinking age is 19. So the day that I turned 19, she insisted on taking me out to lunch so I could have my first legal drink. Whether I wanted it or not, she was determined to make sure that I had my first drink with her. And we shared many more drinks after that. We'll be forever toasting you, Mom. We love you. You'll be missed.
I have no idea what I'm going to get through the humor, so apologizing now. Shortly after we moved into our house, 25 years ago, Wayne and I started trying our hand at gardening. I had grown up surrounded by the most beautiful garden that my parents had cultivated. While my dad likes to garden and does so avidly, it was Mom who had the vision of what she wanted and how it should look. During those first few years, whenever we talked, our conversations would frequently digress into flower and gardening talk. On one of their trips to visit, Mom brought me a little decorative tile that said, "In search of my mother's garden, I found my own." Sorry. If I look at my adult life and how I tried to cultivate how to go about doing things, I think I'm always trying to live up to the high standards and expectations that Mom set as an example. Like our garden, our life is a work in progress. What Mom taught me was always to keep going. That sometimes we grow flowers, sometimes we grow weeds, and sometimes we grow fruit. That sometimes life gets so busy we forget to till the soil, and other times we just have to be happy and enjoy what the garden gives us. I still strive for the perfect garden, but what she made look easy was not a secret. It was her persistence, dedication to keep working and moving forward. To always look for the good in things, and sometimes you need to be a bigger person and move forward and turn the other cheek. Her high standards set me up to expect the most out of myself, my children, and those around. Not to settle for just, it's good enough. I constantly try every day to live up to her expectations and create a garden that she would be proud of. Mom, I hope you enjoyed the garden. I got it from here.
Hi. Thank you all for coming. I know Manani would have been so happy to see so many faces in the crowd. And it hurts to acknowledge the reason that we're here, but it makes me happy to know that we're all together, not to mourn, but to celebrate. My nanny was unlike any person I've ever met. She was pragmatic, logical, and decisive. Normally, you'd think with these qualities there would be no room for any semblance of a free spirit, but Nani always made room. More than anyone, she and my poppy liked to have fun, and she just did it her way, adding a little bit of that Nani flair that we all know and love. She would never skip an opportunity to do an art project with me, but first we had to take a few pieces of newspaper from the endless stack and lay them on the table to keep it clean. In Nani's world, there was never a day without happy hour. Every time my family and I came down to Florida, we would follow through on one of our many traditions, making fresh squeezed orange juice for the family. But we always had to have the right oranges for the job. We would take a field trip to the local flea market and scout for a very specific breed of oranges for what seemed like hours to little me. Last year, me and my dad went back to the flea market trying to find those very same oranges I always remembered, but we couldn't find them. I even looked them up, but no types of oranges by that name came up. I'm probably just remembering the name wrong, but I still like to think it was her magic oranges, just for us and us only. My nanny, my brother, and I had another Florida tradition that would happen every year, without fail. She would take Daniel and me to the Naples Dollar Tree, hand us $10, and let us run wild. It didn't matter how stupid the things we bought were, they were ours. A gift from her to us. She never judged and said, "Really?" when one year I spent over half my money on those little towels that come in blocks and you put them in the bath and they expand. That Mickey Mouse Clubhouse towel still lives in my bathroom to this day, and I cannot see getting rid of it anytime soon. Despite how much she hated a mess, she did not put her foot down when Dano and I each bought multiple cans of silly string and had a very, very messy fight out on the golf course behind the house every single year. Although I'm sure it would have been a very different story if I asked to do it in the house. As Daniel got more into golf and my interest matured, so did the tradition. It became that Daniel would go to golf with the rest of the family, and me and Nani would go to Five Guys for lunch, and then she'd let me have free reign in the Barnes & Noble. A bit more refined than silly string and little towels and squirt guns, I would say. But even the year in Florida where me and Nani both contracted hand, foot, and mouth disease, and we couldn't very well go in public, she made sure to mail 3 books of my choosing back home to me, waiting for me when I got there. Once in a while, we would let my poppy tag along for a round of goofy golf after our adventures, but that Barnes & Noble was always ours. She loved me and Daniel equally, but differently. I always felt like me and my cousin Ailee were the recipient for all the creative energy and problem-solving skills, artistic and culinary wisdom that she had to give. She nurtured our creative side when the people around me sometimes didn't, because they didn't understand why I was more interested in painting than throwing a ball around. Even the ways she went about solving problems, she taught me that with a bit of imagination and with the right supplies, there's nothing broken that can't be fixed. With tape, thread, or pieces of old fabrics that she'd recycled around the house, there was a solution for everything. And in a family of diversely skilled people, I knew that I understood her creative intelligence in a way that others might not, and she understood mine, and she made me feel even more special for it. One thing she generously doled out to me and Daniel equally and without fail were the bedtime back rubs. The nightly back rubs and humming renditions of Chopin's Nocturne were always there to lull us to sleep anytime we were with her. In Florida, Hilton Head, or just visiting our house. Once when I attended Nani and Poppy camp in the summer, as we called it, she asked if I wanted to learn the song on piano. And I said I wanted to try something new, even though I'd barely touched the piano in my life, so I don't know why I wanted to spice it up. But she sat down with me for 2 whole hours and helped me write my own song. She took the back chords and I took the melodies, and we worked for the longest time to craft a chorus that sounded just right. I still remember the finger placement to this day. It wasn't very good, but we did it together. Also, no shade to my parents, but my Nani taught me the large majority of my manners. Always say please and thank you, chew with your mouth closed, and always hold the car door open for ladies. I know I wouldn't be the polite, well-rounded, honest, and perfect person I am without her. I know in her final years, Nani faded, and the Nani that I knew, that I had known back then left. The Nani that could take me places and make things with me wasn't mine anymore, but I'm still glad I could have had one final memory of her, still herself in many ways, reflecting the woman, the mother, the grandmother, and friend that we all know and love. At my cousin Aileen's bat mitzvah, dancing the night away with my poppy, I saw the fun-loving spirit I knew that was still there, and in my heart she always will be. It's hard to know that she won't be here to see me graduate, hear about me thriving in college, or congratulate me on getting my first real job and succeed in all the ways I know she wanted me to. But she's not gone to me. I know she's still cheering me on, celebrating me, and helping me clean up silly string or orange juice messes as I inevitably make them. Thank you.
Hi guys. Firstly, I want to thank all of you for being here today as we celebrate my Nani's long, beautiful life. There's a lot of faces I haven't seen here in a long time, and as good as it is to see you all, it's unfortunate that these are the circumstances that brought us together. Nani was the type of person that just had this way of making everyone around her feel loved. Whether you were a lifelong friend or someone she just met, she had this ability to spread love and kindness to every person that allowed her to touch them with her open heart. I'm grateful that all of you were able to feel this love and be a part of her life as her impact on everyone else around her is undeniable. I have so many memories filled with love from my Nani growing up, but I wanted to choose one to share with you all that best explains the type of person that she was. Everything Nani and I did together turned into an adventure. Seemingly a long time ago, during our annual family trips to Hilton Head, my energetic, ADHD, restless younger self often found it difficult to stay entertained. One morning, I remember Nani coming into our living room just after breakfast, telling me she has a plan for our day, but she wouldn't tell me what it was, but to be dressed and be ready and meet her downstairs. I hated surprises, and I recall being annoyed that my parents pawned me off, seemingly sending me off to day camp on this mystery adventure. I came down to meet her, and we just started walking, and walking, and walking. I was so confused, wondering where she could possibly be taking me. We wound up at this Hilton Head Island trolley stop, and now I was even more confused. I didn't even know what a trolley was. We got back on, and a few stops later, got out at a random shopping mall. She looked at me, reached into her purse, and handed me a crisp $5 bill. I looked up at her so perplexed, thinking, what could she possibly be giving me money for? She pointed. I followed her finger and realized she had brought me to the Hilton Head's prime tourist attraction, the Dollar Tree. Keep in mind, this was back in the day that dollar stores actually sold things for $1. So I was so overjoyed that as soon as we got inside, I ran straight to the candy aisle and bought $5 worth of the best candy I've ever had. To this day, that's still the best $5 I ever spent, because unbeknownst to me at the time, this would start a long tradition of adventures with my Nani. We left the dollar store and ended up at Giuseppe's Pizza and had a long lunch date filled with laughter and joy, as that is what Nani spread to the world and everyone else around her. For the following years, we repeated this adventure, even replicating it when I went to Windsor or Naples to visit them, just me and Nani, and making the most out of boredom. This is just one of the ways my Nani impacted and touched my childhood and formative years. But between her sneaking black licorice into my hand after I brushed my teeth for the night when my parents weren't looking, or her nightly back massages anytime I visited them as a child, not to mention all of our times playing piano, or me listening to you blow my mind with the beauty of your musical talent, there are so many core memories that I had that mean more to me than anyone will ever know. Yeah, she had her quirks, like labeling everything with a piece of masking tape or Sharpie, or making sure that the throw pillows on the couch were perfectly oriented. But there was never a moment with Nani that she made me feel anything but love. Nani, thank you for touching not just me, but everyone else around you with your beautiful, kind, pure heart, but also giving me the opportunity to feel like I was the most important kid in the world every time I got to see you. Whether through her comforting words, thoughtful gestures, or her simple presence, Nani created a space where everyone felt seen and appreciated. Her joy was infectious, radiating through her laughter, stories, and unshakable optimism. She found ways to celebrate even the smallest moments, turning ordinary days into cherished memories. To live like Nani means to embrace life with an open heart, to lift others with compassion, and to create happiness wherever you go. Let us honor her by carrying forward this legacy, spreading love generously, sharing joy freely, and making the world brighter for those around us, just as Nani always did. Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't really know how else to start this, except by saying that I was the only granddaughter. This isn't meant to be a blunt statement, but just simply a fact. My Nani was a ray of light. Being the lone granddaughter, I was able to see her in a different way than my brother and my cousins may have. My Nani loved to dote on me, and always knew how to make me feel special. One of the things that comes to the front of my mind is when we went to Disney as a family. Her, my mom, and I went to go see the Disney princesses and have a lunch at the little restaurant that is there. The picture that I have with my biggest role models, her, my mom, and of course, Belle from Beauty and the Beast, is always and will forever be on my bulletin board. Thank you, Nani, for the lifelong memories that you have given to me.
So, unlike my grandmother, who was always prepared, I rarely am. I'm not very good at putting words down on paper, so I figured I'd speak from the heart. Every time we went out to dinner when I was younger, she always had Matchbox cars. If I behaved myself, I get a choice. She'd hold out 2 hands, I got to pick. And I blame her for all my money going into my car now, because that started an obsession with cars that has lasted me my entire life. It shaped the majority of everything I do, and she's turned me into the person that I've been. She always had coins for me to go diving with at the pool in Windsor, or the pool in Naples. She was always ready for anything. And as she used to say, she always had lipstick on because you never knew who you were going to meet when you went out. So, world lost a great person. I can only aspire to be as good of a person as she was.
So many beautiful words and remembrances. And we know that this week, the week of sitting Shiva and being together with family, we hope that we can continue to share more smiles and more beautiful memories of Betty. At the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. So when we are weary and in need of strength, we remember Betty. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember her. When we have achievements that are based on hers, we remember Betty. For as long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. Betty loved her family. She enjoyed bringing people together, and she found joy in sharing the everyday moments with those that she loved. She embodied the qualities of a great woman. She was a loving daughter, sister, wife, mother, and grandmother. She valued honesty, kindness, and spending time with her beloved partner, Jimmy. We know that the past few years were challenging, and dementia took away so much. But perhaps in this time of memory, we can gain a little perspective, and so share a bit of wisdom that Jimmy discovered on a hospital wall on a plaque. It says, "Rather than mourn the absence of the flame, celebrate how brightly it burned." And also in Jimmy's words, Betty was a true lady. She was the world's best dance partner, bridge partner, golf buddy, and drinking buddy. She didn't have a mean bone in her body, and she insisted that people should always be treated with consideration, and she would always try and help others. Betty was born in Cleveland and was blessed early on with loving parents and siblings. And growing up alongside her brother Mike, and her sisters, Elaine and Adelle, Betty learned what it meant to be part of a close family, one that was always there in love and support. And so much of what made Betty a special person, she learned from her folks. Her father was an artist, and Betty carried that creativity and that artistry forward in her career as a teacher and as a musician. And she channeled her dad's artistry in other areas of life. We've heard about her systems of organization, her ability to fix and mend things, but also an overall craftiness for projects and taking on challenges. Rearranging furnishings in a new apartment, no problem for Betty. Drawing up blueprints for a new home addition, Betty could do that too. It was her unique way of seeing the world, a sign of her sharp mind and talent. And from her mother, Betty also learned about carrying on traditions and that special art, and it is an art, of bringing people together. It was Brian's words that Betty had a way of always carrying things forward, feeling a sense of obligation to keep traditions going, maintain strong connections from person to person and generation to generation. Another aspect of this ability was Betty's unique way of giving thoughtful and meaningful gifts to her friends and family. Sometimes it was just a little teapot with sentimental value, a piece of china that completed the set. Whatever it was, Betty put thought into her gifts, and that made a lasting impression on those she loved. Another life skill she picked up from her mom, writing notes, whether they were on the kitchen counter, table, or anywhere. She was always leaving notes behind, lists and lists of lists. It was a sign that she liked an organized and harmonious place. It's also no surprise we've heard that Betty was someone who took the time to look great, always presenting herself in that elegant, polished manner. And Joey remembers her mom's advice we heard already. Always put the lipstick on before you go out. You never know who you're going to run into. And that elegance carried into everyday life as well. When family was gathered around a table for food or snacks, it was important to have napkins and not paper towels. And according to Betty, anytime there was a gathering, it was an occasion for snacks. And they were always expertly packed and perfectly arranged for the group to enjoy. So what was important to Betty? We've heard it was family, and also music and expressions of beauty. She loved the great composers like Beethoven and Chopin and cherished their masterpieces. Of course, Betty was not just about sublime expression or remote beauty. She knew that music was a glue that kept people together, created shared moments and memories. And as a teacher, she gave that gift of music to so many people, including her children and many, many students. As an educator, she knew her craft well, and her children could attest to the abilities on a variety of instruments. You name it, Betty could probably play it. Happy hours were also important. It was not just about unwinding or sharing moments of laughter and joy. It was about being with those that she truly loved. And whether it was being beside Jimmy or with her grandchildren, she always fed off of the energy and the joy of others. We've heard about the special connection she had with each grandkid, memories that were tailored to each individual in the family. Could have been simply spending the day together running errands, or these incredible memories that we've heard about today. And Judaism was important to Betty as well. She may not have been fanatical in her religious observance, but she loved being Jewish and passing those traditions on to her kids and her grandkids. And when Jimmy served as president of the synagogue, Betty was there by his side, and she found joy being a part of the community. And so we take these moments to appreciate the incredible legacy of a life well lived. Betty leaves behind a circle of friends and family that we can feel the love in this room and in this gathering. She leaves behind her beloved spouse, Jimmy, her children, Brian, Andrew, and Liz, and Joey and Wayne, her grandchildren, Jonah, Ailee, Daniel, and Adam, also her siblings, Mike and Vicky, and also blessed memory, Elaine, Irving, Adelle, and Gregory. So many nieces, nephews, cousins, branches of the family that she knew and loved so dearly. And in Jewish tradition, it's our responsibility to take account of someone's life and to say these words, Zichrona livracha. These words translate as, may Betty's memory be for a blessing. And yet they convey so much in just these two words. They mean that Betty leaves behind a world that is more full of love than before she arrived. And that Betty mastered in some small measure the mystery of life and passed that wisdom on to her children and to the people that she loved. And so all of us who are here today can say of Betty's memory, Zichrona livracha, may her memory be for an eternal blessing. We now reach the concluding section of our ceremony where we will hear the words of the El Malei Rachamim prayer. First, we will chant this in Hebrew, and then again we'll open up our booklets and read together in English. In this prayer, we ask God to provide comfort and peace to Betty's soul as her spirit continues onto new realms. We ask, if you're able to and comfortable doing so, to please rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Ma'meramim, Omitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanefei HaShechinah, Im Keroshim Uteorim, Kezoar Arakia Mozhirim, Et Nishmod Bashya Bar Bevasna Shalachale Olama Balarachamim Yostireit Abiseter Kenafo Leolamim Bitzror Achayim Enishmato Adonai Yehu Nachalata Vatanuach B'Shalom Amishkavo V'nomar Amen. We'll read together in the English. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Betty Sandra Cohen, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen. I'd like to thank Betty's family so much for allowing me to help in this moment, to hear and listen to the just lovely stories and to share smiles and memories. It's an honor to officiate for this moment. We're going to conclude our gathering with the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. And as we turn to these words at the back cover of our pamphlets, we remind ourselves an important teaching of our tradition, which is when we say this prayer of mourning, we actually don't mention death and loss at all. Instead, the prayer of the Mourner's Kaddish is a celebration of God's holy name. And perhaps we can learn from this that in time of loss, it's also our responsibility to summon a sense of gratitude for all of the love that Betty brought into the world. So let's join together with these eternal words. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yolama divera chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael v'agala uvizman kariv v'imeru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da amiran be'alma v'imeru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Osei shalom b'imramav hu ya'asei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. May the one who creates harmony in the heavens inspire us to bring peace to earth, to Israel, and to all who are gathered in Betty's memory, and let us all say, Amen. Thank you.